Hello again, hackers. So I am still working on grading your blogs, and I apologize for not having them up on Wednesday, but I had a pretty bad case of the flu, and so I'm just getting over that. But as you'll notice on my announcement, because I'm getting them up late, your due date for your reflection is going to be pushed back. So I hope to get all of your grades up either tonight or tomorrow night, and then your reflections won't be due until next Sunday. That'll give you a chance to not get behind on this next unit. So, why the parental advisory at the beginning of this video? It's a great question. Because I'm going to show you a post from one of the digital communities that I belong to, and it has some strong language. This is a cyberpunk group on Facebook, and if you don't know what cyberpunk is, it has to do with computer technology and culture in the early 80s, late 80s, and you could see it influenced literature. If you want to check out something that's cyberpunk and easily accessible, Altered Carbon is on Netflix. That's very cyberpunk. But anyway, I want to bring this up as an example because it's a digital community that I belong to, but also it was an interesting post dealing with the theme we're going to deal for this very last essay, or this very last blog, and that is about identity. So this was posted by one of the administrators of the cyberpunk group on Facebook, and I'll just read his post here. He writes, "This is a cyberpunk space, a place to discuss how technology is facilitating or impeding our mega-capitalistic dystopia from a punk mindset," which means anti-wealth, anti-fascist, anti-white patriarchy. Nazism and its extremely prolific recruiters are a virulent issue on this garbage website. And as a note, I think he's talking about Facebook as the garbage website. "And must be dealt with like a virus. If you're going to discuss something related to Nazism, either drench it in a whole lot of nuanced context, or you'll be removed. Nazi punks fuck off." So, this is a post by one of the admins, someone who has power in the digital community, and he is making a strong statement about who belongs and who doesn't belong in this group. I didn't see any pro-Nazi posts, but I think they must have been taken down before I got a chance to see them. But it's a good example of how identity is performed in particular digital communities. A very striking example, I would say. In this digital community, he makes it very clear that the identities of cyberpunks should be non-racist. So this is just one example of some evidence that you could draw from your digital community that could help you explain how identity operates in your digital community. All right, so we're going to move into another genre of writing that is going to require some similar hacking tools to the ones we've used for the report, but it's a different genre, so the hacking tools will be a bit different. This is the hardest genre to write about. It's the digital identity argument blog, and what this basically is it's going to be a thesis-driven argument. We're going to read several examples of strong scholarly arguments, but you'll be able to, for this blog, stick with the same digital community that you picked for your research. So a lot of the blogs that I read were fantastic in the depth of research that you guys went to, and I learned so much about all of these digital communities that exist out there that I had no idea about. And I think that all of these digital communities have much more out there that we could write about. And so I think we could certainly stick with those communities, and you've done so much research already, we can use that community to be the focus of your next blog. Now, if you do want to switch up to a different community, that's of course your choice. It just means you'll have to do some extra work. This argument blog, Digital Identity Argument blog, is going to be about how identity is constructed or performed in the digital community that you researched. Now, the words constructed or performed might seem a little bit daunting, but I think once we start looking at these materials, you'll get a better sense of what that means. So one of the reasons that this blog is going to be more difficult than the blogs before it is because we're not only looking at how the hacking tools are different. You'll notice when we're reading examples of these identity arguments that they look much different than the reports. But we're not only looking at the hacking tools for understanding how we're going to build up this type of writing, this argument, but we're also looking into how identity is formed in the virtual communities that exist out there. So we're doing two things at once, looking into how identity is formed and using our hacking tools. So this will be a challenge, but I've seen all of your writing so far, and I know that you'll do just fine on this. So this is the writing prompt for the blog, and you'll see that there's several questions that can kind of get you started in thinking about how you can write about identity. This is going to be a definitional argument. And so you'll have a clear thesis that gives a clear definition of how identity is manifested in your digital community. This will be a persuasive blog. That's going to be the main point. You're going to persuade me and your colleagues that your definition of identity with the evidence from your blog is a persuasive one. It should also be, of course, argumentative, but it should also be arguable, meaning that it should be something that a reasonable person could argue against with other evidence, another explanation of that evidence. So it's going to be the same length as our other blog. It's going to have citations, and it's going to be similar to our report blog, but it's going to be a focused, thesis-driven argument. And I'll have plenty of readings for us to do this week to understand what that exactly means. One thing that I want to mention is that I like to use formulas that I call cheat codes to help you guys understand the logic of the arguments. So this is just one of many cheat codes that we can use, and I might bring some more out during this unit if they become helpful. I will certainly give you guys all the cheat codes at the end. I just don't want to overwhelm you right now. But basically, you're going to be arguing X equals Y. That X, which will be identity, specifically identity in the digital community that you're researching, equals whatever you find it out to be, or whatever you would like to argue it is based on the evidence. Now, when I say evidence, you guys have probably done plenty of research, and you could probably just use that. But if you need to go out and do some more research in the community, maybe say another observation or interview specifically talking about identity, that would be great. But this is just one cheat code or one formula for us to understand what the focus is of this argument. And there is going to be a much more in-depth chapter about definitional argument that you'll be reading for this week. So our focus is making an argument about digital identity. And we're going to have some pretty good scholarly readings to model, not only to model your blog on, but to explain to us how identity is so important and so complicated in these digital realms. So the first reading you'll do is by Dana Boyd, and it's pretty early in terms of internet culture. She looks at how teenagers build their identities with MySpace. Now, I remember MySpace, and maybe some of you do too, but it's kind of been pushed to the side, even though it actually does still exist, pushed to the side by Facebook. But I think a lot of these same arguments can be made about the digital network of Facebook and others. She is writing about not a digital community per se, but the broader sense, the digital network. But one thing that I think this is important for is she makes some great points about identity and digital identity. And also, I think it's very important that she focuses on teenagers. Why? Is it important that she focuses on the elderly, like our one study? Well, teenagers are at that age when they start forming their identities. And so it's very important that these teenagers are growing up in this time, in this study, where social networking is a new thing, right? This gives them a different way of developing identity. The second study we're going to read for this week is focused on a digital community, and it's the digital community of Second Life. So this scholar, and I won't pretend to try to pronounce his last name. It's Tom Bolstorff or something like that. I can't pronounce it, but he wrote a great book on Second Life, and I took a chapter out and took some bits out where he talks about identity in Second Life. If you're not familiar with Second Life, it's kind of like a game, but not really. It's kind of a place where people create their own avatars and run around and create their own houses. It's a virtual world. And I haven't spent a lot of time on there myself, but I have colleagues, particularly a Mohawk colleague who has spent a lot of time on Second Life, and she created this place called Abtech Island, where she creates these short videos called Machinima. And so I have spent some time there. In fact, we did an interview with her in my class last semester. My class got to interview her live while we were immersed in Second Life. But this study really focuses on how identity is formed in that particular digital community. So what I want you to do is read these studies and think about two things. How would we describe the hacking tools used to create this type of writing? And two, how are they really talking about identity? Now, some of this, the way they talk about it, might seem a little daunting at first, but I hope that the quizzes that I have you guys do will help you focus in on the important parts and the parts that you'll be able to use to make sense of writing about identity in your digital communities. If you look back on the blog prompt, one of the things that will be required, or that you should have in the blog, is citations to some of these scholars that you're going to be reading. Why? Well, because it gives your blog that much more credibility. If you're citing scholars from, I believe, Dana Boyd's from Berkeley, and Tom she published through Berkeley, and I think Tom published through Princeton, right? These are very prestigious scholars, and so if you can cite them, it's going to make your blog all the more credible. Plus, it'll give you a good, more philosophical understanding of what identity is and how we can apply it to making an argument about your digital community. Okay, well, Again, I hope that you guys have a good time reading through some of this. If it does become daunting and you would like to meet with me or ask me questions, feel free to do so. We can schedule a time to meet online and chat. And I hope to see you all online.